SmashFactor.
Ripping driver, going for it. Oh my goodness. How about that tee shot?
That is crazy how far that is.
Wow. John Daly, take a back seat, big fella. How about that drive?
That's an aggressive line. Man, that is beyond long.
Look at this. He's just driven the green. He has just driven the green.
I guess hello world, huh?
Good morning or evening, Corner OGs. It's been a long week already.
I was like, man, are you in Australia or something?
Yeah, I might as well be. Well, Corner OGs, welcome to a special edition of the Smash Factor. It is the 2019 Masters edition. We have a two-man show tonight. Well, three-man. We got our man JB back here running the actual show. So, myself at BP Snow 11 Bucks, and the man himself, Gup at I am the Gup. How are you doing, brother?
Doing well. Tired, but energized at the same time. It's been last week was a grind, and I was wondering if I was having enough energy to get through this week. But last night I watched the 97, 2015, and 2017 Masters, like 1 hour videos I have on demand on DraftKings, and that's all I needed to get the juices going back again. Oh, yeah. So I'm ready to get at it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm super pumped. I've been obviously watching Masters stuff for a few weeks now as we've gotten content out, but it's going to be a good one. Real quick, let's talk about some of our sponsors. Sponsor for the show is brought to you by AmCaddy. Use the code SMASH. Get it for $69 or $89.99. I can't tell you how great this product is. I use it. Gup uses it. Ruby uses it. Also, this is the last week to join GupsCorner for $6.99, $69, $129 for the 2 years. Starting $415, the price will go to our standard package pricing. The 2 year will go away, but we will be adding weekly packages as well. As far as our affiliates, they can be found on our site affiliate page. Thrive, this is a new one. Download Thrive Fantasy app or visit their website and use the code GUP for an instant match of $10 when you first deposit $20 or more. Fanshare Sports, great partner, 20% off when you use the code GUP. And of course, the man, Moose himself, Fantasy National Golf Club. The tools we use, fantasynational.com/GUP for 20% off your next subscription. As always, rate and review on iTunes and like on YouTube. If you have left a review on iTunes or subscribed to our YouTube channel or liked our Facebook page or followed us on Instagram, you will be entered into a drawing to win a GupsCorner prize package worth over $500. That will be announced on our Masters recap show on the evening of the 14th. We have items from Tory, the Honda, WGC Match Play, the Valero, and you'll get a free 1-year membership to GupsCorner.com. Speaking of the Valero, let's get into, and I understand this is a Masters pod, but as usual, we always break down the previous week. So let's get into the good, bad, and ugly from the Valero. Go. What was your good, bad, and ugly?
Yeah, it was in my backyard now. Recently moved down here. So, it was actually from, I was with Adon a lot, and then one of them on Twitter, great guy, I got to meet his wife. He tells me, but he's went the last 4 or 5 years that the ref really was down, the native area was down. And so they did, I don't know if they did it for Augusta or what, but it looked to be a little tricked up, maybe to entice people to come. So I guess that some of the locals, quote unquote, was a little upset that they did that. It made it play a little easier. And then the wind really wasn't wasn't much of an issue until we got to the weekend and the rain. So it really opened up the gates for guys to go low at times. And as we saw, normally this thing's 9 or 11 under, and it was what did he finish at 20? Connors did.
Yeah.
Great story for him. Monday qualifies. I think some people are they're acting like he's like a walk off the street garbage, and he's top 70 in the FedEx Cup. There's just certain. We're not going to get into it here. There's certain quirkiness with PGA and their rules and stuff that he just hadn't gotten to this one yet, and so go back to Patrick Reed. He had to Monday qualify 7-8 times, so it happens, but it doesn't mean he's a garbage player by any means.
Yeah.
And, it was great. It was a good tournament, fun time. Kind of remind me of the Honda in the sense of you can access tee boxes and greens really close and be able to get to see the guys really good. For me, it was just a weird week. We talked about this morning, solid player pool. I did my recap that I do every week. Had 11 guys in my top 40 rankings that made the top 20 of the tournament. This is a 156-man field. 16 of my top 20 ranked guys, final rankings, made the cut. So I missed 4 total. And then 26 out of 40 made the cut altogether out of my rankings. And just felt like I should have hit, but lineup. My bad was just lineup construction for the week. I just didn't put the right guy in the right place, or I had 5 of 6 really good. I had a really hot 6 of 6 that made the top 5 in the $44 as of Sunday morning, and Johnny Vegas just went to sleep, and so that kind of hurt me. Betting started out bad. That was kind of one of the uglies of the week. It started out 0-6. Fought back over the weekend with some really nice 3-ball plays. Thank you to the weather and the MDF. They kept them in 3s, so that was big for me. And only lost 2 stars on that, and I lost 2.7 something on the outrights. Had a Ryan Moore hot ticket coming in late Sunday, missed the putt on 17, kind of ended his chances. But overall, losing week there. Probably just a reminder, ugly, to wrap it up is how close and especially for this week, how I was talking to my buddy who flew in from Dallas, and he was asking me the nuances and DK and all that. It was so Kokrak and Finau make the cut on the number and go on to the weekend. Finau did okay, but Kokrak shoots 10 or 11, 12 under on the weekend, and Palmer misses it by 1. If that flip-flops by 1, I mean, if Palmer makes it and Kokrak doesn't, I probably win, I probably have a 30X week easy. I mean, I would have murdered, the week. But I'm not mad about it. I just want to remind people that it's that close. It's one stroke. I don't even need Palmer to make it. If Kokrak, because we know those 2 were the 2 highest owned in the $5. If they both miss it, I mean, that helps me tremendously because I had several 6 of 6s, but – not only him making it, but then he goes ham on the weekend, and it just murdered me. So losing week on DraftKings, losing week on betting, not a lot of good confidence going into the Masters, but the process was there. And the numbers, I had to remind myself this morning looking up those numbers. I had a solid player pool, just didn't work out for me.
Yeah, no, I think you got it right. Like what you just mentioned about DK and being so close, right, with Palmer making the cut versus Finau or Kokrak making the cut being the 1 or 2 shot difference. I mean, that's very indicative of golf in general. I mean, we had Joe Pito on last week, and we talked about that. You got Justin Rose last year, number 1 in the world, is a 1.5 stroke difference to the number 50th guy in the world, Scott Piercy, or whatever he was, 100, I don't know. But he basically ranked as the mediocre player. And that's how close golf is. And it's just as close in DK, but even more so because then you factor in points. And finishing position is not necessarily indicative of how many points you're scoring. So for me, the money wouldn't show it. I broke about even, which is fine, but I feel like I'm really close. I'm much like you. Out of my top 30, like 24 guys made the cut, which is awesome. It just so happened that Ryan Palmer, which was one of my highest owned guys, missed the cut by 1. But I had a ton of Hoffman, Kokrak. I had 15% Connors, and I broke even. Like I just felt like I was super close. If you would have sent me my player pool and percentages, and then showed me the top 10 of the leaderboard, I would have told you that I would have 10x on the week, easy. But that's just the way it goes, man. Bad would be obviously Ryan Palmer missing the cut. I thought that he was going to smash here. but he lost his driver and was hitting out of just garbage the entire event. And so it is what it is. I mean, that's the way it goes. We did have quite a few green screens from the membership again, which was awesome. So why don't you break that down just a little bit?
Yeah. I don't know. You know me, a name Sherdo67 won the listener league with 566. He won
Which
by
is a massive number.
yeah. Second place was 511 and third was 509. Our boy J Mac has been absolutely fire probably the last 3 or 4 weeks. Really taking the showstoppers that I put out, and unfortunately, he's better at using my showstoppers than I am, because he was ahead of me a couple spots on all of them this week. I think he won almost 10,000 this week and got himself a 3765 qualifier as well. I added up last night and obviously I was grinding on Masters and I was watching WrestleMania, but just the screenshots that were either in our private Slack or on Twitter, we had over 20,000 in winnings this week.
So cool.
And then another like 9,000 in showdown winnings alone. And then betting, a lot of the guys, we had a couple guys frustrated at the first couple of days, but on the weekend, a lot of them, whether they doubled up or not, which I wouldn't advise them, they also, came back and all did well. We had several guys that had Connor tickets, jumped on them live. So it was a good week overall, for the community for sure. We announced Friday night, I think late, that, we hit over 1,000 premium members, which was my 1 year goal. And you were aggressive thinking we may get it by the Masters. And, we blew it out before Masters week even started. So that's amazing. I think it talks to not only us, but the community in itself, how well it self drives, throughout the day. It's a great resource for many things. Yeah, soccer, basketball, that kind of stuff. So that was kind of a good deal last night, especially when you're frustrated as hell at some of the DraftKings stuff. Those guys winning and doing well, makes it well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've touched on the Valero. Now time to get into the real goods, the 2019 Masters. So I'm going to kick it off talking about our breakdown and the course in itself, and then I'm going to kick it over to you to kind of dig in. I know you've been tracking the weather today at Augusta. We've been hearing a lot of noise about that, but it is Augusta National. I mean, everybody knows this track. It is probably the most famous course on tour that we play all year. 7,475 yards. That is, I think, 50 yards longer than last year. They lengthened number 5, which was already one of the hardest holes on the golf course in general. It's par 72, 6,400 square foot greens, which are about tour average. Fairway width is about 36 yards, which is wide, but it's not crazy. The real difference is that the fairways here, or the rough here, is so short that it seems like an easier driving golf course than it really is. Typical tour course, you need to have a 30-yard difference in driving distance to match proximity numbers from the rough to the fairway. So you need to be 30 yards closer to match those proximity numbers. At Augusta, it's only 15 yards. So rather than being 30 yards, you can be 175 and match the proximity numbers of somebody in the fairway from 150 or 200. The course in itself, when you look at it and break it down, then when you look at the statistics, it's a true second shot golf course. It is fairly generous off the tee. Again, there are some places that you can't miss, but overall, because of the rough, it's not anything too intimidating. But these greens are crazy. You have certain quadrants that they put these pins in that dictate the scoring for that day. And you have to hit those quadrants to have a chance to make birdie or even par in certain scenarios. There's a ton of undulation running through the greens and off the greens that you have to be aware of and be conscious of. And when you look at the statistics over years of play, the guys that have played this course before and have played this course a ton before have a distinct advantage because of how difficult these greens are to, 1, hit, and 2, play. I think you hit these greens at a much smaller clip than a normal tour course. And there's a couple of reasons for that. But let's get into the holes. So you have par threes, you got 4 of them, and they average 186 yards and only 11% birdie rate. The one that I wanted to kind of stand out is hole 4. It's 240 yards, and you have 70 feet after your second shot on average, or after your tee shot on average. That's crazy. And it's average score of 3.3. So a par on that, you're gaining strokes on the field. For par 4s, you have 10 of them. They average 450 yards, 10% birdie rate, which is way smaller than the tour average. The one hole I already mentioned it, number 5, I think will challenge number 11 as the hardest hole on the golf course. You have a hole that was already playing really difficult, added 50 yards to it, and I think you're going to start seeing guys hit approach shots from 225 yards to this par 4. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but the course is a little damp right now, and I think it's going to take a couple days to fully dry out and get some of that run back. And so you have these softer fairways that you're not getting the run that you typically expect, and that's going to make this golf course play super long. And then you have the par 5s, and this is the real key. Some years at Augusta, they average 545 yards. There's a 37% birdie rate, but over 40% of all DK scoring comes from these holes. And there are certain years where par 5 scoring will dictate the winner, like last year. Reed won at 15 under. He was 13 under on the par 5s. Same with Tiger in 97. Everybody knows he was, I think, 15 under on the par 5s. And so par 5s play a really big key to this golf course. But when you break it all down, as far as understanding the average approach and the proximity, you have 9 holes or 9 approach shots on this golf course between 175 and 200 yards. And then you have a few that are over 200 yards as well. So you have 13 holes that will fall between 175 and basically 250. That is a long golf course, especially when it's playing damp. And you're talking about coming onto greens that are already difficult to hit. I think you could see some trouble here. You do have a couple holes where you're going to have 100 yards in, like number 3, something like that. And then you kind of have this gap between like 150 and 175 that you don't see too many shots in. So all of this is available in the breakdown. So feel free to jump in there and dive deep into all of these categories. Gup, what are you seeing as far as weather goes?
Yeah, we have a few boots on the ground, if you will, that are reaching out and trying to keep us updated. I have a couple of National Weather Service buddies from back in the day that I can contact and take a look at. I will say, this morning I talked to one of them, and he said that from what people thought yesterday or even early weekend compared to this morning, the wind forecasts have died down 30%, 40%. But you can definitely still see Thursday PM, a little bit stronger winds, chance of a stormish type deal. Friday as well, the PM is not great. So, I think a lot will depend on, as we get closer. Wednesday is going to be huge. And we see better, forecasts on the wind. But, to your point, the perception maybe Thursday morning is great, but if they get more rain than they expect or stuff like that, and Friday PM is not going to be much of an advantage for that Thursday AM. It depending on the player, they could have a hard course in the sense of having to hit 200 plus shots,
The real difficult part about that is, so in the greens, Augusta has a sub-air system that can basically dry it out.
Right.
But the fairways don't. So you could see longer approach shots from the fairway coming into greens that are still going to be as dry as they were, depending on how they want to set it up. But they have that ability. And if that happens, I mean, you could see some big numbers, man.
And here's my thought, and maybe it'll be different than most. I don't really care in the sense, but we'll get into it here in a second. But because of the type of tournament, the percentages we'll talk about of players and cuts and all that, and if we're speaking the public of trying to win $1 million or something like that, like I don't. The AMP and wave stuff could matter, but because there's just as much a risk of rain and storms and shit on the weekend, you still have to have winner. Like getting 6 of 6 is not going to mean anything in most contests this week. So I'm just who's the best player for the week with all the conditions considered in, and that's where I have to build around. And so if I think it's going to be windy, wet, nasty-ish, that may change me a little bit. If I think it's going to be pretty fair all the way around, with some difficulties on both waves, that'll change. So betting wise, I'll factor in for first round leader. But outside of that, this is a totally different tournament, especially when you're talking about cut percentages and DK strategy. To just focus on the first 2 days would be inaccurate, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. So it's not like you should approach this as a no-cut event, but realistically, you have 87 guys in this event.
Yep.
Top 50, and anybody within 10 will make the cut. And you have 15 guys that you can pretty much rule out immediately. Past champions, first-time AMs, that kind of thing, to have a realistic chance. I mean, when you think about it like that, I mean, you have to have a really, really high 6 of 6 percentage to even have a chance at cashing this week. You have to have the absolute nuts if you have 5 of 6 to have a chance at cashing and winning any money this week. 6 of 6 is almost a must-have. And I think you're right from the weather perspective, because it's so, one, it's the weather, but two, there's so many different things going on this week with the rain right now, and then winds, and then rain on the weekend potentially. I don't think there should be a core focus on that in deciding your player pool unless something changes.
Having said that, the one thing I will start factoring in based on what we see on coverage over the next 2 days is first-time guys that I may have liked a little bit already. If their practice time is being cut dramatically, it's gonna hinder me wanting to jump on them because they're not going to have the experience that these other guys have. And now they've lost, a day and a half, 2 days of practice out there on the course, and I think it'll hurt them. And there's a few of them I like, not to win, but to sleeper type guys. And I may have to move away from that. But at the end of the day, you're going up against 232 something thousand people for the $1 million. And you're going to have the nuts to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that in mind and discussing the player pool, what stats are you going to be looking at this week?
Yeah, so obviously, this is a week where a multiple revision type deal. You get so much information out there and so many opinions. Many great guys, obviously, and some of them are great with us. And in the morning, I'm going to join, Pat Mayo and Drewby on Mayo's show, and which I may have some different opinions by then. By the time I rerun some stuff overnight, I'll be up early to get ready. So right now, it's going to be kind of, you said it, it's second shot course. So the approach matters. I have around the green in there, and I think the worse the conditions may be overall, the more I factor that in, because a lot of guys are going to be missing greens. They're going to be needing to save. Par is going to be go back to the Danny Willett year, right? There's 4 guys over par or under par or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but right now I don't think it's going to be that bad. I lean more towards it'll probably shake out to be a pretty decent week overall. The winds are going to come into play. It's going to play a little tougher. It's not going to be the year that Spieth or Tiger went 17, 18 deep, but right now, depending on how Sunday starts, because right now Sunday looks to be potentially worse of a bad storm, which won't factor in for cut or anything, but it factors into who's going to win. If it's going to be 20 mile in the rain that back nine on Sunday, all hell can break loose. So it's going to matter on who's got the, mentality to grind through that. And so that matters. But, greens and reg, you want as guys are hitting as many greens as possible, ball strikers. long iron play. And then bogey avoidance is creeping up even more in my model as the days go by right now. And I got there's going to be focus. I haven't really decided how much I'm putting into the distance, fairways gained, green. I mean, all that, it factors in, and then the par 5 scoring is all right there that they matter in version 2 of my rankings that I'll do tomorrow night. There's a couple of those I'm going to bring in a little bit just to kind of look at a different view. But right now, the core is really that approach around the green and then the bogey avoidance stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I agree with all of that. I think for me, the big stack categories are going to be strokes gained approach, strokes gained around the green, greens and regulation gained. And then I will be having a pretty heavy weighting on par 5 scoring. If I think that the course is going to be playing difficult this year, then guys are going to need to take advantage of the par 5s to make up for the fact that they'll probably make a few more bogeys on these par 3s and par 4s. Now, I'll probably, like you said, revisit this every day until Thursday morning to figure out what I really think is going to happen and how I think it's going to play out. But right now, I think that the par 5 scoring and iron play is going to be the two biggest categories for me. I mean, when you look at last year's Masters, for example, only one guy in the top 30 lost strokes in strokes gained approach. And so I think it's really important to focus on that and then marrying that with kind of strokes gained around the green, because the short game here is so important.
And probably the only last thing would be that more than any other tournament on tour, and I'm sure, a lot of the industry said this, not trying to repeat, is that course history is a real thing here, right? Whether you want to, I don't care if you call it course fit or whatever, you can look at the statistics and nowhere else. And the reason why I say that is there's places where certain players have good course history and it matters. Here, course history matters because it's the course. I'm not saying it's correlated to every player. It's just that I'm going to factor that in more than I do any other time of the year because it's the same tournament, same place. And the biggest reason is the lack of information that the players get on the greens and stuff. As we know, we talked about last pod, they don't get the maps of the greens and all that. And so that it's a huge factor to have that local knowledge. And I read a tweet right before we came on about JT saying that Tiger's definitely less chatty this week about information than what he is normally. Take that for what it is.
For sure.
it matters, right? They're trying to win this tournament and games played matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let's get into the picks, our lock, flocks, and flops. I'm going to start first. I'm going to go with one lock, and this category is anybody 10K and above. I can't tell you how hard it is to just pick one guy in this price range because the majority are guys that warrant being picked. But the one guy I'm going to go with is going to be Rory. 5 straight top 10s at the Masters. He was in contention last year, shot 74 in his final round, finished 20th in strokes gained approach last year and still had a top 10, top 5, has since improved in that category. So Rory is one of the hottest players on the planet right now. And his iron game, his wedge game is amazing. So my one lock is going to be Rory this week.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's difficult to narrow any of it down. And if you're doing, it's going to make it real hard for guys that want to try to do the single bullet type stuff or
absolutely.
Or they're throwing, one lineup in the 37-65, or maybe they got a qualifier and they're trying. I mean, it's just so hard to say you're going to fade anybody.
Yeah.
In the Millie Maker, I'm maxing it. I'm sure you are too, or close to. And there's going to be very few that I'd fade. But one thing I was telling some of the guys earlier, I only got to talk a little bit in the Slack, was that I saw guys say I got 5 lineups already locked in. And I was like, if you truly have that on Monday afternoon, Godspeed. I hope you can. I mean, I just don't know how anybody could get to that point already in their lineup building. Now, what I will say is definitely you want to start locking your player pool, and it's going to be super hard to fade off of guys and not. But the sooner you can make those decisions and just stick with it and don't waffle off your pool, that I think that's key. But I don't know if I'd lock in yet, just because there's a bunch of information we don't have with weather and tee times and all that. I couldn't lock in a lineup right now, not knowing the tee times. Right, it's a little bit of a factor, and I definitely want to know where everybody's going to be at. With that, I mean, it really comes down to me to two guys, and I think it's a coin flip in the industry. I'm seeing a little more in early projections going towards Rory. I think it's still going to be close on these two, but I'm going to go with DJ. I think mainly for the big reason what you said of if it is playing a little harder and if it is key on the par fives. He T4'd here in 2016, which was a year Willett won. Great showing. And I think, I worry about Rory with the wind and all that and, history a little bit, not much. I think he's a much better player right now than he's ever been in his career. So he can win this thing for sure. But I'm going to go with DJ as my lock at 10K or above right now.
Okay. Well, good. We will be covering Tiger here in a little bit in some of our other picks that we didn't mention. So don't go away. Flocks. Lead us off with our flocks, which are three guys between $7,000 and 9.5.
Yeah, I had four guys narrowed down, and it's been really tough right now. But my first one is Stinson. He's probably right now the guy in my model that's standing out everywhere. That's not in the quote unquote elite talent. T5 last year, he's only missed the cut once in the last 5 years. Other than that, he's top 24. And really, I'm not saying he's going to win it, but at 7,600, and potential tough conditions in a way on sometimes, I mean, he can weather through that. He's playing really good since he kind of we had the crazy overseas, missed 3 straight cuts, came over here, struggled at, I think, Mexico a little bit, then played really good at API. Missed the cut of the players. That can happen to anybody. And then a T24 Valspar, which is an extremely tough course. So I like Stinson a lot this week. He's big in my player pool right now. The next guy is a guy I think can win this thing. I went back last night and watched some of the 2016, and he actually played well that Sunday coming down the stretch. He T7'd. I think in a lower scoring or higher scoring, however you want to say it, type Masters, his putter's not going to hurt him as much. He's great in bogey avoidance, great around the green, and great in approach, and it's Hideki. Right now, one of my biggest players in my pool. I love him right now. Nothing really there. The next one was kind of a 3A, 3B type of deal. I literally a coin flip on these two. I went with Finau at the end of the day because Kuchar was the other guy, but right now he's just gobbling up ownership percentages, and I'll take Finau at, I think I saw 7 or 8%, 6 to 8%, call it less ownership. And I don't think enough people realize his performance last year on a broken ankle was unreal. And so I like that he's sitting his first time. He's all over the board as far as stats. His rolling stats, he's improving. His rolling putting under bent, fast, all that models, he's top 10. Didn't play great last week, but I watched a lot of him on the course, and he was fine. I just think I don't know if it was focus or not. It didn't seem bad off. It was just off, but he made the cut, made a little run. I love Finau. I like Kuchar. I just think that's going to be one of those hard stands to go. Do you want to be 35%? Because if you're even with the field, I don't know if there's an advantage there, and that's a big topic that'll happen in the next 24. He looked great. Trust me. I played a lot of them last week because I watched him in person during a practice round. But if he's going to be 10% more than Finau, I would take Finau. So my three right now are Stinson, Matsu, and Finau. Yeah. So similar to you, I had 5 guys that I had initially that I had to narrow down. The 2 that just missed my cut were Spieth and Cooch. We'll talk about Spieth in a little bit.
my number one play was 7,600 Stenson. Finished fifth last year, 4 top 25s in his last 5 events. Has struggled this year, but he has still been on fire with his iron game. And he's starting to trend in the right direction. Top 10 in both categories in proximity, 175 to 200 and 200 to 225, which I think will be a popular number this week. So I do like Stenson a lot. Second guy, Matsuyama. I freaking love him this week. He is by far the number one guy in my stat model using Fantasy National. He is number 1 in approach, number 9 in around the greens, number 4 in greens in regulation, number 3 in proximity. The only thing he technically struggles in is par 5 scoring. He's still top 25. I really love the way that he is playing right now, and I think his elite play with his irons will keep him in contention, and I do think that he can win this week. My third guy is going to go back to Sergio Garcia at 7,700. I really like Sergio this week. Obviously, we saw him last year. We saw that his wrist just wasn't quite there, and we decided to be a full fade. And obviously, number 15 was just ridiculous. But he is top 5 in approach right now. He looks solid, looks a lot healthier, and he's starting to find that driver. And I think when he finds that driver, it breeds confidence in the rest of his game. And he obviously likes this course. So I think that Sergio, Matsuyama, Stenson, all top 10 this week. And I do think that all 3 of them are very, very low priced for their potential value. So getting into, give me 2 guys that you think won't return value. So give me 2 flops, Gup.
Yeah, and this was easy. A lot easier than flop or locks for me. It was almost a snap decision. I had to go back and make sure I was looking at it right. But, and typically we look at this, and not always does this mean we're going to fade them 100%. It's just a little guy. But these 2, one of them I know I'm going to have probably 0% of, and it's Patrick Reed. I will have none of him. I think he played tremendous last year. He got the green jacket. There's nothing I can say to take that away from him. I think the odds of him repeating his putting performance and winning here versus other guys' game is slim to none. And the second guy, I don't hate him. He potentially could be a play for me if he's going to be lower owned. We'll see how that comes out. I just worry about the longevity of the whole week, and it's Mickelson. I know the history here is great. I think because of, especially, when we're talking about this lock, flocks, and flops, it's really focused on normally it's a $5 drive the green. Here's the Millie Maker. Tiger, lefty-ish kind of guys. The public knows those names. They saw Phil beat Tiger. So if he's going to be higher owned than he should be, I don't mind calling him a flop this week and potentially taking a stand there. But those were the 2 that popped pretty quickly when I looked down the list. Yeah,
so Reed was in my top 3, and I decided not to mention him because I figured you would. So good job. My first fade is going to be Woodland. Woodland
he was my third.
There we go. So Woodland is a guy that I love. Number 1, I generally play him on a course that you need to marry distance and accuracy. And while you need that here at Augusta, it's not at a premium. He's not an elite iron player. And so I think that the fact that you can hit it quite a few places on this golf course and still be in play takes some of his advantage out of here. And when you look at his course history, it's awful. So I don't know if he has a bugaboo about this course or something like that, but it's really, really bad. The second guy, and this is probably this could be really bad because I'm going to be a full fade on him, is going to be DJ. And that's solely because of price and I wouldn't say necessarily course fit, because he does have a decent track record here. But when I think about the way right now that I think the course is going to play this week. I do think that he has a bit of an advantage off the tee. Obviously, he crushes the ball. He doesn't like moving it left or right to left. But I still want those guys that are elite with their irons. And yes, he's top 15 in the world, but at his price, when I compare him to like a Rory right now, I can't realistically take a DJ when Rory's right there. Same with Tiger. I mean, Tiger's my number 2 guy there. So I'm going to be a full fade of DJ this week. And again, everybody in that 10K price range is tough, but I just don't think he's going to return value, especially when, and then I read Joe Pita's book, and historically DJ, from a strokes game perspective, does not play as well at Augusta compared to the rest of his performances on tour. So I'm off. But
yeah, I don't even know how to. I don't even know where to. If we were sponsored by Tito's, I would take a Tito's timeout here because that might be the most asinine thing I would have ever expected. You should have prepped me on that one so I could have had time to digest that. I would have named 85 other guys as a flop.
Well, obviously you took him as your lock.
Well, right, but that you for you, I wouldn't even thought you would have picked him.
I just don't think that. I don't think he top 10s this week. And if I'm picking a guy up there, I need a top 10. So
JB, get the betting pad ready. This is going to get interesting.
Charity bet.
Oh, all day. DJ versus Rory. I'll take that all day.
Okay, perfect.
Done.
All right.
On the books, JB.
It's on the books. All right. Go.
I mean, the one positive about that is if you take a bold ass statement like that, you can free build a lot of the other areas because you've already faded. I mean,
that's the thing, man. I mean, especially if you're only doing like, yes, I'm going to be max entering the millie, but realistically, the majority of the contests that I'm entering this week that I care about are like, I'm going to have 5 in the 555. I'm going to run a single bullet in the 3K. I'm going to do the 3 max 150. And so you have to take stands like that. I mean, sure.
Yeah.
In the one, if you have 150 lineups, then should you have a piece of almost everybody? Sure. But again, I'm going to play even a tighter core this week than normal because you have to have a differentiator somewhere. No,
and you're right. It's hard for guys like us because we do play different strategies than most, and we – I'll get emails or DMs or whatever, and they're like, well, you said blah, blah, blah on the pod. And I said, well, my pod talk is for most of the consumers out there. And most of them are playing, the mini max, the $1, the $3, the $5. And I was like, but like, I love DJ this week, and I'm not certain he's going to be in any of my 555 only because of building strategy, right? Well, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to get to the high. And I'm going to have a bullet in the 3765. And I would probably lean towards I wouldn't have either one of Rory or DJ because of the way I want to build this week. But in the 150, I will because I want to have a little bit of exposure to some people. But I'm dead on with you that I think the majority of the people that enter 20 plus in the Millie Maker try to get a little bit of everybody up top. And I think it hurts them because
absolutely.
I would rather live and die on the sword that I create with my player pool. And I want, if I had 30 guys, I want to use the 150 to try to get every freaking combination of them I can get so that if they hit, I've got them. I don't want to take, all 6 of the 10K plus or how many ever there is and then build 20 lineups with each and hope one of them hits because I think it's limiting my, my scaling potential of those deals. So I agree with you there. I just –
and in the millie, you're not there, like you're not dumping 150 lineups in the millie because you want to break even or make $1,000. You're there to win $1 million. And so taking stands like that to shorten your player pool, and if it hits, is a huge payoff. So It's just a strategy you have to take. Give me your one kind of guy down low, sleeper under 7K that you think has big upside this week.
This has kind of moved a little bit different direction for me over the last 24, 36 hours. And only because I just a little bit of the, and we did a pod last Wednesday night, released it Friday, overview of the whole tournament, some betting, stuff like that. Didn't talk about DraftKings. We made the decision, talking behind the scenes, not to do our pod last night because I get it. It's the Masters. We're all gun-ho excited. We're, like a 17-year-old boy at prom, hoping for the end of the night, reward. But I wanted to get as much information as we could, the finish of Valero, the weather, and there was no benefit of releasing this thing last night at 10 o'clock compared to today for us. And that's just a stance we took, and we talked about it as partners, and that's what we decided to do. And I feel already that Kisner is going to get down-talked, and probably perceptionally, I kind of felt that way as well. And then I started, running, diving, and I was blown away that he's, this will be his fourth straight year playing here. He's got a 37th, a 43, a 28.
Yeah.
He's number one in my long-term to short-term putting model. He's number 7 in my long-term to short-term stat model. And he's got 3 straight top 25s. For 6,700, I hope he continues to get talk like he's not good. I know he was on the Tour Junkie spot, I guess, last night, so that probably doesn't help. But if he's going to be chalky, then that's a different story. He for me is going to wind up where he's coming in. And my 1B is similar as like that. It's Mitchell. The one reason why I didn't pick him is I'm afraid if they don't get enough practice and everything in, that worries me about him. I haven't done the research yet to see how much he got to play it in college being a Georgia boy, if he had some access or not. I got a couple of –
He got to play it.
Right. So I don't mind going there as well. He loves putting. Yeah.
Different environment, though.
Yeah, exactly. But so for now, it's Kisner. And if people are going to just think it's cute to fade him, then I'll let him be cute and I'll take him. And I don't mind it at 6,700.
Yeah, I'll say real quick on Kisner that if the course is playing long and soft, he would be downgraded for me.
I agree with that.
But you're talking about a 6,700 guy who's been playing really, really good golf. And so, Kisner's realistically a guy I could see up in the $7,500 range and still look at. So with that being said, I looked at a couple. Obviously, Hoffman I looked at. His course history here is great. He played really well last week. 5 straight made cuts to the Masters. But the one guy I'm going to go with is Grillo. He has a couple made cuts here. His game hasn't been great if you look at like the last 24, 36 rounds, but it's trending in the right direction. And the best part of his game by far is his iron play. And so, again, he'll be a guy that I look at. His wedge play is good. Again, though, I'm going to have to see how the week is shaping out as far as how the course is playing and what we're seeing on Wednesday in the practice rounds. If we're starting to see these balls roll out a little bit more, I'm going to upgrade Grillo and Kisner because I think that their game suits this golf course. But a 7,500-yard golf course that is wet and on a course that has so many elevation changes and some of the hardest holes on the golf course to play uphill in elevation, I think that needs to be taken in consideration. So let's get into, and we've started doing this the last month or so, is head-to-head picks. So I'm going to go through, name 2 guys, and I want you to give me, of those 2 guys, who you would take. First up, Fleetwood or DeChambeau?
Yeah, an interesting couple there, right there. And all these are going to be close in price. Right now, I'm going Fleetwood. I'm interested. We'll get into drifting and betting here at the end of the pod, but if that market is any indication of DeChambeau's ownership, he could start to become really, really under-owned, and I don't mind taking advantage of that. But off paper, Monday night, the guy I would play today, all things equal, would be Fleetwood for me.
Yeah, for me, it'd be DeChambeau. He's been really, really solid with his iron play, wedge play for the last 8 months. He hit the ball really, really well here last year and lost almost 6 strokes on the greens. And so I think that him getting some time on this golf course really helps him this week, obviously. So I'm going DeChambeau. The next two are Bubba or Spieth.
Yeah, I like both. Potentially both I'll be overweight on in the 150. I would go Spieth right now.
Yep.
I'm even flirting with him becoming into one of my top lineups just for a massive amount of leverage. And I get it. I watched him in person last week on the off the tee, and the only comeback I have to that is he's still 8, 9, 10 under, whatever he finished. And at the course where being comfortable and being course history, course fit, whatever you want to call it, is double important than any other track on tour. He's got a second, a first, a second, a third, and 11th the last 5 years. And I just can't ignore it. Now, if I die, and the positive deal is he's $8,900. And B, if he's going to be low owned because people just aren't on it yet, I could have 15% of him, and I could maybe massively overweight, but I like Spieth.
Yeah, I'm going to go Spieth as well. I mean, it's hard to ignore Bubba, but Spieth is, I think, a different level of player. Obviously, he hasn't been playing well, but his iron game, wedge game looked really good last week. And this golf course is a bit more forgiving off the tee than what we saw at the TPC Oaks. So I'm going to go Spieth. Next one, Adam Scott, Xander Schauffele.
Another tough one, but especially with the weather kind of where it is at this point, and when he won that year wasn't, perfect weather by any means. I'll go with Scott back to the course history factor, knows the greens well. And I think Schauffele may be a little higher. I think he's a little bit of a DFS darling, and I love him. Obviously, I was on his first 2 outright wins. Pre-tourney had him bet, so I love everything about him, and I probably underestimate him more than normal lately. But I think this is a week where veterans, and I like that Scott's game is moving positively lately, and so I'll probably go Scott. 12th at the TPC, and really kind of quiet off the radar. Right, he hadn't played since then, so he took the WGC off. So I maybe under own. I don't know, but I like him right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. Like, it doesn't even need to be said, but Scott's putting worries me. Getting into a bad mental mindset about your putting at Augusta is like the worst case scenario. So just for that reason alone, I would go Xander. I think Scott's ball striking keeps him in it, but I'm going to go Xander off that. So this one is probably the most interesting one to me because I love both of them. But who would you take, Stenson or Garcia?
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago, it would probably my head would have said Garcia. I bet him way early in the year. I liked where his game was coming in. Ball striking approach is there. Obviously, everything I stated tonight, I would take Stenson right now. But I plan on having plenty of Garcia in many contests. But I would take Stenson if it was down to those two in that price range. Yeah,
Stenson for me as well. Both are obviously in my flocks, but I really like Stenson where his game's at. Who would you take between Snedeker and Bradley?
Yeah, I think both these are going to be kind of under the radar guys that I may load up on a little bit, especially in the Millie. Right now it's Bradley. Bradley was number 2 in my stat model and number 1 in my rolling stat model.
Number 1 in your heart?
Yeah, I've been on Bradley a while. I like him. He is top 5 in 4 of my 6 categories. He missed a cut at Valspar, but before that was playing decent. He has not played the Masters since 2016, which worries me just a hair. He's just an average course history here. Obviously, we know his putting can be a concern. I do think he likes quicker greens. As far as the splits from a POA or a Bermuda to a bent, he was one of the top ones I looked at. He seems to like bent, or not that he's great anywhere, but when you're looking at the difference, so at 7,000, I definitely, and I don't mind, I don't mind both of them, but I would go Bradley.
Okay, and the last one we're going to do, Cantlay or Poulter?
So he's on my round table as we're going to get real deep into the field here in a minute. But I love Cantlay this week. I think Patrick Cantlay can win the Masters this week. So when I start getting to a certain range of certain players, you want as many guys as you think has a legitimate chance to win it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they will, and I think he does. I think Poulter's great and can grind. I don't see Sunday night when we're about to award someone a trip to Blue Jack and play golf with us that we're talking about Ian
That's
Poulter holding the green jacket. I can't envision. I don't see that in my mind. So if I'm down to this price range, I got to pick one. I'm gonna go Cantlay.
Yeah, I would go Cantlay as well. I'm in the same boat. I mean, Cantlay's been on my short list for a while just because he's an elite iron player. He kind of has that issue with putting and kind of keeping his head right. But yeah, I'm the same way. Like when I pick my player pool, especially here, I have to be able to envision them putting on that green jacket, getting a win, and I don't see Poulter doing that this week. He's that little grinder, but I do like Cantlay a lot. So I'm glad we agree there. Now let's get into a little roundtable wrap up here. I'm going to ask you a question. What is the lowest price you would go on the board this week? Who's the lowest price guy you'd take this week?
So, and this is a big area of the week, you have to decide how low you want to go, and you make that initial cut. I won't have him very much, but a guy that I will play in the Millie Maker, pedigree is just there, and I think he can. I'm sure he's going to be the favorite, but he will be my bet for low am, even if he's only plus 150 or 200. But Victor Hovland's the guy that I would use pretty, I don't mind have whatever. I don't know what he's going to be, but if it's 5% and I'm, twice the field, that's great. I mean, I'm not going to go crazy and put him in, my 375 lineup, but I definitely will have a decent chunk of him. And that was the lowest guy I could find that would really, I could say, all right, he can, for an AM at 6,200, if he makes the cut, that's a success. And then if he can get, even top 30, 40 is even better, but that's a guy I really like.
Yeah, so I actually have the same guy. So they're really the range from 6K to 6,400. There was, it's a dead zone for me. But the one guy I think that can make the cut, and I'll tell you the reason why. I think that he has the propensity to score really well on par fives. He can go low at any given moment, but he dominates par fives. And that is obviously needed at Augusta. And I think that will make up for some of the mistakes he is bound to make this week. He's going to make mistakes this week. He's going to struggle at times on the greens. He's going to miss some greens in the wrong spots and be screwed. But I think his par five scoring will make up for that. And I think he makes the cut. So go ahead.
The one positive I like about him in his situation of a short week or whatever is that, those Okie State boys are close. And I know Ricky will help him out, prepare as much as he can, mainly because it's not like JT and Tiger or something like that. But Ricky probably wants to see him make the cut succeed, probably in the back of his mind going that he's an amateur. He's not going to win the Masters, but if I can help him any shape, way, or form, they hang out a lot. They stay at Ricky's house when they were down some amateur stuff. So I know they're close, and that at least is a comfortability for him to go to kind of a big brother type of feel, different from some of the other guys that are first timers here.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of the cut, though, what do you think the cut line is going to be, and what do you think the winning score is going to be this week?
Yeah, right now I think +3, +4 is kind of the range I have it in at. I'm going to go +3, and I'm going to go -12 wins it is my prediction.
For me, I'm going to go +5, and I think -6 wins it.
Wow.
I think there's some weather uncertainty, and I don't know if the weather calms down. I think they can get close to double digits, but realistically, I'm thinking -6. I think the weekend turns into a par fest kind of thing. So that's how I think it's going to play out. What are 2 or 3 guys that you haven't mentioned so far that you think kind of are flying under the radar right now?
Well, I just mentioned one, not in the golf sense, but I'm interested to hear in the industry and kind of just researching everything. The Ricky Fowler top, right? Is he's in that awkward price zone of not up top elite, and then you can drop down below him and get quote unquote, value. Brooks is 200 below him, and Bryson's below him, and Bubba's below him, and Spieth below him. So the 97 is that price point of, does people just keep either going up or jumping down? I don't know. I'm interested to kind of see where he's at. A 5th, a 12th, 11th, a 2nd. Last year with a miscut during the kind of the Willett year, which I don't pay much to that, but form's been fairly decent. I like that he played last week and played fairly well. Friday, I think it was Friday night. We're out having drinks, and I didn't feel he was going to have one bad round. He did. And then Sunday came back, finished strong. I think he finished, T17 or something, -10, -11 under. Obviously he likes this course. He plays it well. He's got the game. And as far as win players go, quote unquote, we don't get that topic going again, but he can play in the win, right? And he's proven to play in the win. Another guy that kind of some sleeper type under the radar, lower price that I have my eye on. Matt Wallace is one of them. I wonder if he's going to pick up steam or not. I like his game overall. He's a newbie here. And that's one that when you start looking at, can he win? I don't know if I have that feeling, but he jumps great, and everything I'm looking at, probably a potentially good bet at I think 125 or whatever it is, but like where his game is coming into here. The other one is kind of, a guy that's off everything you've talked about. I think maybe on your radar, maybe not, but right at 7,000 as well is Dearborn Olsen.
Mm-hmm.
I really, depending on how the things shape up, his stats are looking great. He didn't have a lot of things over here to go off of. So I did some research last night on his Euro stats and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not an expert there. So I wanted to spend some time on someone like that was showing up in the few things I did have here. So really high approach, greens around the green. I think his game is strong enough that, I don't mind going there as well as a guy that just may not get talked up a lot, in the industry.
Yeah, no, I hear you. There's a couple guys that for me, I was looking at. One guy that I think is getting kind of underlooked right now because of his recent form and being surrounded by every other person is Justin Thomas. I like, obviously his form is bothersome, right? But he does have 2 top 25s here. And when I think of Augusta, I think I need elite ball strikers, elite iron players. And historically, that's what he is. He's a great mid to long iron player, a great wedge player. JT embodies that for me. And obviously he's been a little off right now, but if I think, and I see later in the week that he's going to be way under-owned compared to everybody else up there, I like JT a lot. The other guy that I haven't heard anybody mention this week, because I think he's in, like what you said, a weird price range, is RCB. So RCB is kind of an interesting play for me. I think he has the ability. He's long. He can score on par fives. I don't necessarily think he's an elite ball striker, iron player, but at his price, where he's at and his potential, especially to score on par fives, I think that brings him into that conversation. and being $100 less than Stenson and $200 less than Sergio and Cantlay, I think he'll be way under owned. And so that obviously brings him into my radar for like the Millie.
Yeah, I played him a lot in the last 6 weeks. Definitely has burned people if they've been playing him like I have. So he could definitely be a guy, especially the one thing I like about him is he makes a ton of birdies, but he makes a ton of bogeys. And so if your prediction starts to look more right Wednesday night, we're at 5, 6, 7 under.
Yep.
I think at that price, he can stay competitive and stay in it. The guys that, and this is kind of probably its own segment. So there's probably like 3 guys we hadn't really mentioned at all, and they're all very key to this deal. And Jason Day, Tiger Woods, and Jordan Spieth, a little bit on Jordan, but those 3 we're probably the only pod in the industry that'll be an hour plus in, and we're just now talking about Mr. Woods, but
I knew we'd get to him.
Yeah. And there's reasons, right? Our categories and the way we do it. He just kind of fell in that kind of same area as Fowler, but all 3 of those are just going to be what do you do? And Dave's history here is tremendous as well. So, I think all 3 of those can put the jacket on Sunday, and I wonder where the industry is going to be, where you are, and where those 3 round out as we approach Wednesday night and Thursday morning lock.
Yeah, I like Spieth, and I'm glad you mentioned Tiger. I figured you would. Tiger's going to be one of my top 3 picks this week. And that's not just a fanboy play. The guy's legit. His iron play has been elite. He has struggled at times off the tee, but even that's gotten better. So I really, really like him right now. Most strokes gained ever in Masters history. His game is far different than at this time last year. Last year when he came into the Masters, he was 88th in the world rankings, and now he's 12th. Oh, and speaking of which, the average winner of the Masters is, from an official world golf ranking standpoint, it averages 12th. And so, not saying that really makes a big difference, but I love Tiger this week. And so I dig it. All right, perfect. Well, let's get into the betting. And I know you
did you have a thought on Day at all or no?
I'm not gonna. Honestly, I can't play him because I'm not even kidding. Like, I don't think he. I don't know. I can't handle the potential risk for him, and I'm not saying he would this week of any week, but I can't even handle the potential risk of him WDing or something like that. Like, he is so tilting at this point. I think he's legit. I think he's a great player. And I think the fact that he's playing a golf course that's fairly generous off the tee works out in his favor. But I still can't play the guy right now. With everybody else surrounding him, he'll be another guy that I'm likely a full fade on, at least in the 555s and the 3K, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and, the point you had for Tiger was the one I had. I think people forget that Tiger was I wouldn't even say back coming into form. He was just kind of making some ground up in his game, and he still T32'd here last year. He didn't do anything special, but his game is miles better than what it was at this point last year. I think Tiger, $9,700 Tiger is a lot more attractive than 10.5 if you look at all where he kind of ranks out on everything. But I'll have Tiger definitely in the Millie.
Sure.
He's borderline for me on the upper stuff yet. I got to make decisions there, and so I'm still working through that process. And probably the last thing before going into betting, probably the guy that hadn't been mentioned at all, but is high on everything. He just fits in the number. I couldn't take him as my lock, but it's John Rahm. He's the guy that I feel the industry will kind of be off him, which I'm hoping for. And I plan on being, probably heavily invested in DraftKings. I think this is his 3rd year. He made huge gains from year 1 to year 2. He's coming in off T12, T6. His big worry is, and everybody will probably say it, and I agree, is he doesn't have the strongest approach game and around the green game.
Yeah.
As much as he's off the tee, great. He's He's a guy if you play him and you go all in, you just got to hope he gets hot, because when he gets hot, he's as good as anybody. And if he's in form and comfortable and making putts, he can win that. He can win this thing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You ready to get into betting?
Yep.
So I know you've released, or not released, but I know you have your betting card complete. So I don't want to deep dive into the betting and all of your picks, but we're going to go through each range, and I want you to give me one guy that you like at those odds. So if you had to pick one guy 40 to 1 or shorter, who would be that guy for you?
Yeah, it'll be Matsu would be the guy. And unlike many years before, I had a loaded up Masters card, and this year I did not do that. I had a couple going 3 or 4, no, probably 3 before really the last week or two. And I pretty much finalized it last night, with the only difference being there'll be some drifting today. And you'll probably hear that term. People are like, that's a car racing tournament. What do you mean? And so the books try to keep the odds and everything in a total perspective. So if you start getting hammered, let's say Tiger or Rory, or, they have to adjust elsewhere. They don't just move one guy, right? Everything kind of moves together with each other. And so if there's a guy not getting much play, he could move up as much as 10 points. So, for sure. A Stinson could go 50 to 60, or a DeChambeau is a perfect one. I've already seen him move a little bit in some of the markets. And so that's kind of the last thing I'm waiting for. Is there a guy that I have pegged to go if Rahm's one of them? Rahm's 18 to 1, 16 to 1, where you look, if he drifts to 22, 24 to 1, he may be my final bet. So I just want to, that's an education piece for guys to understand what that means. But I can't go really low. Obviously, if you said who you're going to bet, I'd pick DJ or Rory, but there's no value in that. So the guy that's the lowest on the board for me that I think's value is Matsu. Yeah,
absolutely. So I agree. So I would, if I only had one bet in this range, it would be Matsuyama for sure. It's not even a question. My number 2 would be Tiger, but it would be absolutely Matsuyama. When we get into the range 45 to 1 to 75 to 1, who would be your guy?
Yeah, this is a loaded range. So if you're new out there,
loaded.
You don't know what to do, my advice would be to skip that lower range, maybe take one, and then here I would go 3 to 5 guys. This is the range I got Garcia in when he won. That was my first pick. First Masters win. You can find some value here, and I think you can surf. This is a really close one between 2 or 3 guys, but pure odds and potential to win, I would go Stinson, and very, very close as Cantley, but I like Stinson.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly the 2 guys I had down, so I love it. Stinson would be my number 1 choice, but I do like Cantley as well. Who's your long odd guy this week? So 80 to 120 to 1.
Sorry, this guy kind of popped up a little late. But for the price, I like him. Potential, depending on where he draws at, it's Snedeker. I really like where he's at. I think he can play well. Potential weather could benefit him. We'll see, but I really like Snedeker at his number right now.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to include 125 just because it's so close. But I would go Keegan Bradley or Chucky 3 Sticks. I like both of those guys this week, and I think that number for them at this golf course is tons of value, tons. So over 120 or 125, who you got?
Yeah, so Keegan was one in there I had kind of earmarked as well at the 125. The other 3 or 4 I have listed are all first timers, so you're throwing darts. But one guy that we recently have seen get hot and could find a hot putter around here and make some potential runs on Sunday would be Keith Mitchell. I think. Depending on when you locked him in, he's anywhere from 150 to 200 right now in the open market. Watched him at Honda in person. The stones he showed coming down 18 and then making that putt, knowing he was going to have to play Ricky and Brooks in a playoff, I felt like that put him in a class of, if he's hot and on, he can show up and play. But that's a value pick being that high. I mean, you can throw a couple bucks on him and, you're not breaking the bank.
Yeah, for sure. No, I completely agree. For me, I would my number one pick would be Zach Johnson at 150. I think he's rounding into form, and I think he's getting his form back. Now, if the golf course is playing long, that kind of maybe sways my opinion, but I really do like Zach at 150. So that's what I like. Let's get into the one and done. Do you have the standings as of now?
I do. I'm at 4.84 million. Ruby's at 2.32 million, and you are right behind him at 2.15 million. So I think I've missed 4 out of 5 cuts now after being making it as high as 12th. So I'm going the other way, but hopefully gain some leverage back this week. But anybody's game still. Ruby's pick is Rom for the week as his one and done play.
Okay. Well, mine is going to be Stenson.
Nice. I think you would gain a lot of points on that one if he gets there. There's some guys I like to win that I've already kind of used, but of my player pool that's remaining for this one, my number one rated guy left was John Rahm, and so I am also going John Rahm with Ruby. That's
a solid pick, though, man, because he has been so good. Iron play is right there. As long as he can just keep his head in the game and like the golf course doesn't teeter on the verge of unfair, I think he'll be fine. So. All right, my man. I think that was the OAD. Oh, and just so everybody knows, the 2 losers of this little 3-man OAD is going to donate $100 to the winner's choice. Gup is looking pretty solid right now, but it is what it is. Some reminders now, Gup. Go ahead and hop in and fill in. But for schedule the rest of the week, we obviously have the pod dropping tonight. We're going to keep pumping out the breakdown. Tomorrow, we're going to have the picks article out. Ruby's Rubies is going to be out. Tambo's Tea Time is going to be out. And then Wednesday night, we're going to hop in the chat room at 9 o'clock for the Emergency 9. We're still hosting it in there so the members can access those chat transcripts afterwards. But you do have to be a member to join that. The Slack is on fire all day, every day. But there's going to be a lot of information dropped in that Emergency 9 chat as like our final thoughts, ownership projections, anything changing with the weather, tee times, that kind of thing will all be in that chat. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's Ruby's got a special article coming out tomorrow. Nate's going to do a single bullet type article that I think is a unique concept. Tonight is more of a, everybody's going to be watching the national championship and kind of grinding over some new data and checking things out. I will have all of my stuff out as usual. Tomorrow I'll release my version 2 of rankings mixed in with kind of the deep dive deal all at once. Normally on deep dive, I look at tournament history and recent form. Obviously there's no strokes gained data out there for history wise. We actually, Joe Pita, as we mentioned earlier, who was on the pod last week, has it for last year, and I'll mention that some in tomorrow's article, and then Gup's final thoughts will come out Wednesday night. All the chats are great and important. I do think this one, because of, especially if you're new to DFS golf, if and you start just looking at the pools, once you start sitting down and trying to build it, it's very difficult to make those tough calls. And I think that chat room really helps, and it's the one time that we all are on at the same time and focused and, and talking. And then like Buck said, the reason why we host it on site instead of in the Slack still is because it allows us to transcript and post afterwards. So if you're out church or whatever, you can grab it later. But it's a big deal. Do not forget your one. Like, go in right now and everybody pick your one and done. And if you change 6 times, at least you have one. Do not forget your GC Cup. And the reason why I say that is, like, there are segments and majors and all that stuff that pay out totally differently. You need to focus with that. Don't forget, if you were in the Grand Slam Challenge, that this is round 2. And if you sucked, I think I may not have sucked to the bottom, but I wasn't great. This is a whole nother pot this week in that Grand Slam Challenge. Not only that, the full year pot, you get to drop your worst of the 5, which was
you're still in it.
Yeah, you're still in it. So if you don't remember, go check out, make sure you get your picks in. Go do those now. I put mine in this morning.
Yep.
Or no, last night. I locked them, and then you can change it 19,000 times. It doesn't matter. Just
make sure you have something in. Yes.
Right. And so those are all, coming up. It's going to be a great week for us. Thursday night, we're going to do a live post round 1 recap, weather update, showstoppers. Friday night, we'll all be around for live cut sweat. I'll post. We may do a live Friday night. Because we're going to be around all night live in the chat during the cut sweat, I may just post an article Friday night so we can have a little bit of time with our family. Saturday night, I know Bucks is busy, but I may go Periscope that night, do a little one-on-one. And then Sunday is the grand finale. We'll all be in the chat room during the Masters watching it. About 90 minutes to an hour, or 90 minutes to 2 hours afterwards, we are going to do our live show where we'll announce who's going to go to Blue Jack National with us in 2 weeks. Ooh. And so, it's going to be, and we'll announce the winner of the $500 plus prize pack that night. So make your plans. Hopefully we're talking about all the money the GupsCorner community won, but looking forward to it. It's going to be a great, awesome week for the GupsCorner community.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know Gup mentioned it, but this is your last week to kind of lock up that pricing. Get in, join the family. It's a fun ride. The team, the full family has a great time all week, every week. So get in while you can. Go.
Yes, sir.
It's taken a while to get to this point, but the last thing we need to do in this pod is pick who we think is going to win and who do you think is going to be the top 3 finishers.
Yeah. So my third place is going to be DJ. My second place is going to be a little bit of a change from our pod Thursday night.
Okay.
But I'm going to move John Rahm down to second. And I think the winner of the 2019 Masters, and what will be a fully emotional night for not only himself but us, is going to be Tiger Woods.
Yes,
I think he wins. I think the weather and the struggle and the grind does nothing but help his advantage. I've already used him in my main one. He is one of my one and done picks, but not the main one we're in. That's why I don't have him there. People start freaking out. I don't have a bet on him because I still bet with my mind, not my heart, and the value for what he should be is not what it is now. It doesn't mean I won't change. And honestly, I hope he shoots like a 71 on Thursday and it's 5-shot back and I get, double the bet or value. But I think Tiger's going to win it. I think he's focused. I think he's driven. I think the conditions and everything it rounds up really helps him for the mental grind game. And I think he wins. What about you?
Yeah. So, I thought about this a lot this afternoon because much like you, I try to visualize who I think will be there putting on the green jacket and what it's going to mean. And there were 3 guys that stood out to me the most. And so those are going to be my 3. Third place is going to be Matsuyama. And I think it's going to be a tight race there. I think there's going to be a playoff between Tiger and Rory. And I think Tiger is going to win on the first playoff hole. So I am 2 picking Tiger Woods to win the 2019 Masters.
Man, 2 for 2.
2 for 2. We got our flocks going. I mean, outside of DJ, this is looking good, man.
It is. We'll see how that ends. Probably final thoughts for me.
Go, stand up. Show that freaking T-shirt, too.
I was about to. I was getting to my final thoughts. Right.
Hey, Gup, stand up. Show that T-shirt.
I don't. Yeah.
I think it's fire, man.
Yeah, we've been. Big. I give a big little mini speech in the Slack, and I'm proud of the members, the partners, the community. Where we've come in 7 weeks now is amazing. And everybody asks. I'll tell you, this isn't me bragging. You can ask anybody on Twitter. The majority of the people feel bad for the amount of money they're paying us for the information and content. They think it's a grossly underpriced deal. And I tell them, hey, love that. This is our model. We believe in it. If you want to help us, the way you can help us is spreading the word, being real, being true. Call us out, good, bad, or ugly. That's kind of our theme deal. But spreading the word naturally helps us because we want the community to grow itself. And then if you do have a few extra bucks from green shirts and all that, getting into buying shirts, this is our first. We made them, custom made them. JB did an awesome job. Bucks helped him put the deal together with We Believe Blue and Joe. Doing that kind of stuff helps us. So that's how you can help back. We're not gonna, obviously we're telling you it's locked for life, so you don't have to worry about prices up until Sunday, right? So Monday prices go to standard pricing. There will never be a lock for life offer again. This is it. You got 6 days to join in, and after that, tough luck. We're going to standard pricing, and we'll have codes and stuff out there every once in a while. But for the vast majority, this is how you get in for $6 a month, $7 a month, or $69 a year. One time only. You can buy a 2-year deal for life for $129, which means every 2 year you can re-up as long as you're a member at that price. It really doesn't get any better than that. Probably the last thing on that is you get 1 ticket on the $69 plan and 2 tickets on the $129 plan for the Blue Jack drawing that'll happen Sunday night. That will cut off when the leaders make the turn on Sunday. When they start the back 9, the drawing part of it, the prices will last till midnight. You'll have them all the way until midnight, but the drawing piece for the shirts, we have to have time to put the stuff together and actually get it. So the drawing part ends when the leaders start on the 10T. We're going to pull all the names, all the duplicates, the doubled up 2-year, and Mrs. Gup will draw the name out, and then shortly afterwards we'll announce who that is. With that, our big winner of the 555 ticket. So we did a contest out there, and we had, I don't know, between the 3 or 4 tweets, close to 500 to 1,000 retweets, quote tweets, comments, which thank you. That helps us a lot. It helps us get, notoriety out there and some exposure. But the winner of the 555 ticket, so reach out to me at I am the Gup or JB, and we will tell you how we're going to get that to you, is at HamDog66, John Hammond, which I know he's in the community. I'm fairly confident.
Is active on Slack.
Yeah. So John Hammond, you win the ticket. Reach out to us tonight. We'll get you set up. The one thing we're going to have you do is post your 555 lineup for us. At least in the after lock, not before. And we want to cheer you. We want to cheer you on. Everybody that won it, that'd be cool to kind of follow you. So after lock, we'll check that out and see who you put in there. And maybe you have other lineups in there. But you win it. Congrats! It's awesome. Stay tuned the rest of the week. We're not done giving away stuff right now. The way Bucks talked about, like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube. All those ways get you an entry. So if you do all 4 or 5 social media deals, you'll get 4 or 5 entries into this thing Sunday when we give away all the prize packed information and the memberships. If you're already a member, we just add it on to you. And so that's not a problem as well. I'm excited. Go Texas Tech tonight, as I have a 45-1 outright on them. I know you're a Virginia boy, but
it's fine. Honestly, I'd rather you win. I'm not tied to UVA.
Yeah, I'm not tied to Lubbock. I loved them because they're D. I picked 4 teams before to bet on: Florida State, Tech, Buffalo, and one more, and they happen to be one to make it. So I did hedge a little in case, just to cover, just for fun. So I have no stress tonight. I hope they win it all. And then, we'll be fired up tomorrow. Tomorrow night, nothing live, but we'll all be in and out of the Slack getting on it.
Yes.
And then Wednesday will be nonstop. So, looking forward to it. Share the podcast, support us, buy a t-shirt, please. We're not reordering them. So we're over halfway sold out. So when they're gone, they're gone. These will never happen again. I promise you that. And we will have some more shirts later on down the road for standardized, but these versions, limited edition, when they're sold out, they're out. So don't wait. Go ahead and buy one. Bucks, anything else for you gone? Stay safe. Sounds like you may be in some bad weather.
Yes, I'm in some very bad weather. Yeah,
Right.
a couple things real quick. Finau, undulation, and immaculate.
I'm gonna go take my 4 shots now. All right, man. You have a good week. We'll be on every night, so you guys come reach out to us and let's have a good Masters.
SmashFactor.